The words you say matter. What you say can make you be seen as an influential leader with high potential or as someone who should be ignored and avoided, which is why you find yourself constantly wondering,
did I say the wrong thing?
By the end of this video, you will never ask yourself that again, because today I'm breaking down the 10 things you should never say at work. The first phrase is one of the most despised corporate sayings out there. You've definitely heard it before, and let's face it, you might even be guilty of having said it. That's how we've always done it. In one of my old jobs, the company I was working for was acquired by a massive Fortune 500 company. And while I love the company, I heard this every day, including from higher ups. Thing was, their way wasn't always the best way. Shocker, I know. But that isn't even the worst part of the saying. The worst part is the sentiment that underlies this phrase: complacency. High potential employees are identified not just by the results that they're able to achieve, but by their ability to learn new things and bring forward innovations. You know, the opposite of being complacent. There is viral career advice telling you to say this next thing at work. And self-proclaimed career advisors are raking in millions of views and scamming countless people by telling them to say this toxic phrase. And if you follow it, both your career and your income growth are going to stall in their tracks. To know why it's so problematic, we first need to talk about the major change that has been happening in career advancement over the past decade. There has been a massive shift from,
I think Chad has the potential to do this job,
and we all know how that works out, to this.
Emma's already been operating at this level for the last 3 months. It's time to give her the promotion.
To mitigate Peter's principle and people being promoted to the level of their incompetence, promotions are increasingly being awarded based on proven performance. Which means if you aren't saying yes to work that is above your level and taking on stretch assignments, you're putting yourself into a corner. Which means that viral girl boss tip,
"That's not my job,"
is sabotaging your career. Now, if you don't want to advance your career beyond where you currently are, and you're totally happy with the exact income that you're making and you don't want to make any more money, then hold those boundaries because you don't need to expand your skills. But the mere fact that you're watching this video tells me that you're invested and you don't want to hang exactly where you are forever. If you are being asked to step up and do something that is going to help build the case for your promotion, your pay raise, and build your personal brand, you're being handed an opportunity you should take full advantage of. This next one is going to be controversial. And personally, I hate that it needs to be on this list. But it's basically a Pinterest expectations versus reality post come to life. And if you say it, you will almost guarantee that the person that you're talking to is going to dig in their heels and make sure you do not get what you want.
That's not fair.
If the world was fair, chocolate wouldn't have calories. There would always be a promo code for 50% off, and it wouldn't be as likely that your CEO's name is John as it is they're a woman. However, I digress. You and I both know that right now, fairness is more of an ideal than it is a daily practice. While I'd venture to say that most people consider themselves fair people making fair decisions, everyone that you encounter has unconscious biases that is going to cause them to act unfairly. Like, let's say your boss has been playing favorites with Chad. Your boss is assigning Chad all the high visibility projects you know you're way better suited for. After the 5th time it happens, you decide to discuss with your boss that you don't think they're being fair. What do you think the chances are that they're going to see?
You know what? I am playing favorites and being unfair.
I'd peg it at less than 7%. What's much more likely is that cognitive dissonance is going to kick in big time. That means your boss's brain is not going to accept the incongruence between the idea that they are a fair person and they are acting in an unfair way. So even if they are being overtly unfair, if you call out their unfair behavior, your boss isn't just going to rationalize why Chad's a better pick for the projects. Their brain will immediately go to rationalizing why you are not the person for the project, which reinforces their decisions and encourages them to repeat those same decisions in the future, keeping you sidelined. The next thing you should never say at work is on the surface level a positive thing, but underneath it's incredibly problematic. Imagine this scenario. You have a report that is incredibly time sensitive. It got dropped on your desk by your boss who is presenting it later on today. If you don't complete it, your boss is going to look bad and they're going to take it out on you. No big deal, you can reprioritize, you drop what you're doing and get started on it right away. But you realize that there's a segment of data that you don't have access to and you actually need input from your coworker Rachel. You message her like, "Hey Rachel, can you get me these numbers within the next hour or so?" And Rachel replies, "I'll try." Which leaves you wondering, what does it all mean? Can I count on Rachel? Is she going to do it on time? Notice the questions that were immediately triggered. They centered on competence and reliability. This means between actually saying I'll try and doing the thing, confidence and trust are being corroded. How many times have you been dealing with an awful customer or a toxic coworker and you've said to yourself,
I don't get paid enough to deal with this.
it's one thing to say this in your head, it's another thing to say it out loud. If you are legitimately being underpaid or you've been promised pay increases and they're never coming to fruition, complaining will not fix it. You need to take action. Talk to your manager, get timelines nailed down, and if they're not fixing it, then you need to find an opportunity that's going to pay you better because you deserve it. When it comes to the sentiment of I don't get paid enough to do this, there's something that I think no one is talking about, so I'm just gonna say it. It doesn't matter if you are working for minimum wage or making $1 million a year. In every job, there is going to be a certain level of BS that you need to deal with that is never going to feel like you are being paid enough to deal with. Because you're working with humans, and humans are gonna human. This next one is one that you hear almost every day. There is a positive and productive way to use this phrase, and if you're not, you're missing out on career growth opportunities. But before I tell you what it is, we need to talk about the toxic way that 90% of people are using it. That makes them look like catty, gossiping coworkers who cannot be trusted.
Did you hear about Emily?
Unless you're about to hype Emily up, do not finish that sentence. Because whether you're about to speculate on Emily messing up on a project, getting fired, or gossiping about her personal life, you are creating the exact thing you cannot stand, a toxic work environment. Gossiping about people gives I'm unhappy with my life and trying to drag everyone down with me vibes. Gross. That said, there is gossip you absolutely should be engaging in. Like, was Emily promoted? Did Emily get a preview of a restructure that's about to happen? Or is Emily on the outs with the leadership team and you should avoid her like laundry? That said, be careful how you use the intel that you collect, because it can make you fall into the trap of saying this next phrase that you should banish from your vocabulary. As the old saying goes, this makes an ass out of you and, well, really just you, because no one forced you to do it. I assumed. In my experience, assumptions about projects, initiatives, and even promotions are often just wrong. In fact, in one of my jobs, I assumed a colleague was going to be promoted before I was. They had been there for longer than me, they were vocal about their desire to advance in their career, and let's face it, they were pretty awesome at their job. So I kind of mentally checked out thinking I wouldn't get a career advancement opportunity for a while. I even started looking for jobs outside of the company that I thought would help me progress faster. But I assumed wrong, and thankfully I didn't take one of those jobs outside the company. Because not only did I get promoted, I was promoted multiple times over the span of a few months, and I had doubled my salary within a year. This next thing that you should say at work is the exact reason why I have seen so many people end up being scapegoated by toxic bosses and toxic coworkers. It might be the right thing to do, but in the wrong situation, it can make you take the blame for other people's mistakes and problems. This was my fault. As soon as you say this, whether or not it was all your fault or some of your fault, all of the blame is going to you. When you're willing to hold the hot potato of blame for taking accountability for the role that you played, everyone else is going to claim it's your potato. Even when they're the ones who bought the potato, put it in the microwave for 8 to 10 minutes and sprinkled it with salt. I used to struggle with this, and this is something that a lot of my clients have struggled with as well, because we all share a core value of accountability. However, I want you to differentiate between being accountable and being blamable. You can be accountable to yourself internally in your own head. You can be accountable with people who acknowledge their own accountability. But if you're around anyone who points the finger, know if you accept any responsibility at all fingers are going to be pointing at you. Do you want to be seen as a toxic person that everyone should avoid while making yourself miserable? If you do, skip this one. But if you want to be liked, respected, and seen as a leader at work, you need to avoid saying this as much as you would avoid a creepy dude who keeps on asking for your Insta. Well, actually, it's not a specific phrase or word. It's complaining. Complaining is a trap that's easy to fall into. Other people do it, and when your coworker is bitching about the boss, it's easy to join in. Then you get to trauma bond and stew in your mutual misery. It can also be emotionally validating and kind of make you feel better for a minute. Dopamine hits complaining. If you've been here for a while, you know that I am not opposed to the occasional rant. I think that letting things out is very necessary and healthy sometimes. But situationally, doing it at work is a bad idea. When you're complaining about someone or something, you might say something that you don't want others to hear. But once they're out there, you need to assume everyone's going to find out and it can be used against you. Even if it doesn't get out, it can cause a negative perception of you. Like, how do you feel around someone who's complaining all the time? Unless you feel a massive sense of relief because,
I get to complain too.
Chances are you probably get frustrated listening to all the complaining and do your best to avoid them. I had this happen the other day in a group chat that I'm in where someone keeps on complaining about a gravity problem. That is something that isn't changeable. There was no point to the complaint, and this wasn't the first time it happened, and they ended up alienating themselves from everyone in this group. Plus, if you are complaining with your coworkers, you might unintentionally have created a complaint committee, and now every time someone's unhappy, they're going to come to you to complain. While avoiding saying these things is important for your career success, these things aren't the biggest problem that you have. You will be the subject of office gossip, a ton of unnecessary work drama, and make yourself the target of your ambitious, toxic coworker if you tell your coworkers any of the 7 things that I break down in this video.